We're continuing with verse number 4, which is Vayar Elikim Asar Kitev Vayavdel Elikim Bein Ha'erev Bein Ha'cheshach. And it was seen by God the light that it was good, and Hashem God separated between the light and between the darkness. We translated it, and with open perception, the power of boundaries infuses the pure clarity so that it is ready and thus is distinguished by power boundaries from within and the pure clarity, and from within the thick haze. Can I give you a sheet? Okay. So we're in the middle of the verse already from last week, so we'll just continue. What I'll continue with actually is explaining a few of the words. It says that with open perception, the power of boundaries infuses the pure clarity so that it is ready. What does it mean? Kitay generally is translated as good. We translate good as being ready, fitting for the creation. So that it is ready. So that the word ki in Hebrew, it's like a key in English, key, has the power to light up a reflection of the Creator's bond with each element of existence. So when you see a shine, it comes from here. This word ki. Even though it is too powerful to coexist with limited creations, the Creator designed it to fit in wherever and however it is needed. So it fits in different places in its own way. It is ready to give clarity to creation. It's similar to the candlesticks or the candelabra in the temple in Jerusalem, where it was built with the windows to shine outwards. Normally you build a window to bring the sun in. It was built to shine the other way. As creation evolves, it serves to reveal the Creator within each aspect of creation, because each creation expresses that there is a Creator, that it comes from somewhere, and therefore it expresses the Creator. This is not good or bad, it just is a matter of fact. At this point, each matter is moved directly via the thought of the Creator. There is an underlying knowledge of something that is not fitting, though. The fact that we say it's fitting for creation means there's an idea that there's something that's not fitting. Hence the concealment of the Creator in creation. And that the concealment is something that's not fitting, because if the Creator really wants to reveal itself, concealment is the opposite. So while the Creator is revealing itself according to what we can accept, there's still a concealment, so it has two different sides to it. Here it is still all one conglomeration, and according to Kabbalah, this combination here is called Tiferet, beauty. The power of boundaries, infuses the pure clarity so it's ready. And thus, it's distinguished by power of boundaries. What is the word distinguished? Is Vayavdel. Separated, and we explained last week, it means that it didn't separate it in a negative way, but it's the idea of separation is to give it its own definition, its own space. Distinguished, it is so within itself by assigning a specific name to each matter. Prior to this, there was no practical difference between everything that existed, because it was just a oneness without designation or definitions. Naming things allows for separation to eventuate. So initially it's all one. There's a distinction in thought, but that enables that later on further distinction and separation can occur eventually. The name of the Creator that's used in creation here is Elokim. This name is distinguished from all other names because it's a specific name, but it also describes a specific expression of the Creator. In fact, each name of the Creator in the Torah, we have many different names, each one expresses different modalities of expression. Thus, by definition, it's an expression put forth by the Creator with the purpose of defining the creation. Definition is also referred to as a hardening within. When you have to define something, it's easy to flow with something. When you have to define it, it's called a hardening. It's hard, sometimes a bit hard to do. How do I define it? What do I do? It's like you're putting it into a certain block, into a compartment. So it's called hardening within. One result of the distinction made here is the creation of a form of choice. By distinguishing things, you have a choice, this or that. When we see the truth in every creation and recognize its essential life force is the divine, then it's not possible to choose anything that is juxtaposed to that force. In the future, all will know the force that makes everything happen. As it says in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 5, all flesh will perceive that which the mouth of God is speaking. So, right now, not everyone sees God or the Creator in everything, but at some point, everyone will. This sentence or this verse speaks about distinction in a simple way. Yet the distinction creates opposition. Night and day, dark and light, clarity and haze, for each and every aspect of creation. This refers to the spiritual as well as the physical aspects, each which eventuate into its ultimate shape or form. I think we have an idea of what is happening here in this thought. That everything is one in the thought, but the mere fact that distinction is made creates all different other realms of possibilities. Before you make a distinction, nothing else seems possible. When you make a distinction, it's okay, now something's happening, and you can go, whether it's freedom of choice, whether it's opposites, whatever, things can eventuate from it. The power of boundaries. The power of boundaries, when something that has no definition has a boundary, so the boundary conceals things, it's also a way to reveal things, which can be absorbed simultaneously by creation, meaning both clarity and haze. So when you make a wall for anything, you make a wall to fence something in, you're making a wall that fences things within the wall, and you make a wall for things to keep other things outside the wall. So there's two sides to the wall. And same thing when you define, there are things within the definition and out of the definition. So boundaries are important, but the boundaries also have limitations. Now, this name of the Creator, or this name of expression in the creation, Elohim, which we translate as a power of boundaries, it's used twice in this verse. Other places it's once, here it's used twice. It's there to tell us that this expression of the Creator is the power that sustains the haze. Another name, Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, sustains the clarity. Even though the definitions come through Elohim, but the clarity is with the Yud-Keh Vav-Keh, which is not mentioned here, but is mentioned later on in the book of Genesis. That name is not subject to the boundaries of this creation, which is why it's not mentioned in the descriptions given of the boundaries and how things are created, because it's not limited to it. Elohim is limited to those boundaries. This is a general concept, but there are other aspects here which are not part of our discussion here about the name. The name Elohim is mentioned 32 times within the first chapter. So it's used throughout the chapter, 31 of them in relationship to an issue of clarity, and only in this verse, one time it's used twice, only in this verse is it used to refer to the choshech, to the haze, the darkness as well. So it's it's not the same, it's a little bit different than the other names of Elokim because it's referring to something else, which is not the clarity. From within. There's no external separation here. It's only an internal distinction. The clarity and haze is still in the same place together, so it's still an internal separation or understanding of things. Now, from within, this refers to all matters associated with the thick haze. In the verse it says, from within, then the pure clarity, and from within, the thick haze. So it refers to everything associated with thick haze. The Hebrew word here is uvein. 2 words prior to that, to uvein, is the word bain, which is written with a B and a V. You can see here at the top line, it says bain. It has a base on on your left side. On the left side, there is a base and has a dot in it. In the next line is uvein. It's without the dot in it. Okay? There is a difference between having a dot in it or not. With the dot, it's a B sound. Without the dot, it's a V sound. Right. So, B is a stronger sound and V is a softer sound. And the difference is fascinating. This reference is not about haze. It's about the haze. It's not about how it was created. It's specifically about the fact that it's distinguished. That with one word, with the word or clarity, it says with a strong sound of B, and with the haze, it's a softer sound, the V. So they're both expressions. But the difference is in the following way. The clarity is with a stronger sound because the clarity is going to be used for what happens for later on in creation. You need the clarity to move forward. The thick haze is not there to move forward, it's just part of what happens when you have things without comprehension. And so it's a softer. It may be a stronger energy, but it's a softer part in creation because it doesn't move the creation forward. So that's why it says first, Bain Ha'er, and then Vein HaChoshech. And in fact, throughout the Torah, if you read the Chumash, you read the Torah, you'll see many times it has first, when it says the 2 words, whether this or whether that, Bain, or between this, between that. So it says first Bain, and usually the second time it has a vase, Vein. Through the Torah you find this all the time in that sequence, which is interesting. So the internal purpose of the clarity and the internal purpose of the haze are of different natures. The fact that this is with a stronger sound, this is softer, means it's a different nature. The Ramban writes that in the previous verse it says Vayomer, it's speech, softness. It says to create things, to bring things out, to bring the haze as a creation is brought out. To bring things out, you use saying. But this verse starts with the word Vayar. Vayar, and he saw, and as we write, with open perception, which we'll talk more about as well. So Vayar means that it's given energy for existence, to continue existence. So we will go a little bit over the words of the verse for a few minutes. The verse begins with the word and it's a vav, which the vav is a dot on top and is drawn down, which is the ability for creation is being formed here. Then open perception. Usually a boundary is formed with the purpose of limiting something. Here the creator in essence cannot be limited, so the boundary is also formed for the creation to have the ability to grow and to open beyond the boundary that it's set in. So if the creator made boundaries just to limit it to that boundary, it would never connect. It also needs the ability to reconnect beyond the boundary. The word saw, vayar, feels more physical. The word perceive seems to be less tangible. And here we're dealing with a creation that's of a thought process. Open is beyond the limitation, yet it is also within the limitation. That it can allow one to see the creator, which is beyond the limitation in the limited thing. If a person wants to see it, they can see it to one degree or another. Infuses. Perception is also a creation. Clarity is also a creation. In order for clarity to take effect, it needs to be brought forth, not stay in its own space. That's why it's infused with perception. Clarity on its own doesn't do anything. You have to do something with it. It is ready. This means that it can now serve its purpose with the ability to shine forth. Good and bad isn't brought forth until later on in the creation. So people often translate good here, but good means there's bad. And at this point, there's no bad, so there's no good. It's just the creator forming things in thought. Distinguished. This is different from physical separation, as it is internal and thus remains in the same space. As such, it's simply a form of acknowledgement. If no distinctions are made, creation cannot exist in the form it eventually takes in this world. It couldn't exist without it, so therefore we have it. We have distinctions. The power of boundaries. This possibly indicates that there exist two different levels or sides of the same boundary, of the same expression, the same name. So names have opposite. You find in Hebrew, you translate names or words, and there's usually an opposite meaning to the same word as well, or the same name. Many names have two sides to it, and it depends which side you focus on, many times. One exists as it is in relationship to clarity, and one as in relationship to the haze. The same name, Elohim, exists in both places, clarity and haze. Within, there are various aspects that exist internally. Stating something twice gives reference to distinction. Clarity, haze, what's clarity to one person or on one level of creation may be haze to another person or on another level of creation. So everything depends where you're at. There are three types of levels of clarity mentioned in here. In the sentence, in verse 3, it says, Yehi Ar and Vayihi Ar. Yehi Ar is external, Vayihi Ar is internal, and in this verse it says Ha'ar Kitov, which is an encompassing energy. So the word clarity or light is mentioned 3 times, once in this verse and 2 in the previous. Internal, external, and encompassing clarity. Haze seems less tangible than clarity. Thus, it is often we see that a little clarity or light can dispel a lot of darkness, because clarity for us is more tangible. It gives us more space, and it's expansive. Haze is akin to clothing, to being clothing for the clarity. Without the haze, the clarity would not be recognized. And without the clarity, the haze wouldn't serve any purpose. So often we think that there are negative things happening. Why they're happening? The negative thing happens, or the difficulty happens, for something positive to come out. But if positive doesn't come out, then there's no purpose in that negativity or that that difficulty. Moses brought forth that clarity from the Creator in creation and infused it in the Torah. So many people read the words, but they don't come to that understanding, that clarity. But the clarity is there when you get into the words and you can connect with your mind and your heart and go to the energy behind it. It opens you to the energy that Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moses put into the Torah. The numerical value of the word for light or for clarity is Or, and it equals 207. The numerical value of the word Raz, secret, also is 207. So Or is clarity, Raz is secret, which are two opposite things. If it's a secret, it's not clarity. If it's clarity, it's not a secret. If it's clear, they're opposites, but both come about in the same numerical value or same numerical vibration. So it's not just in the Hebrew words are opposites, but in vibration, vibrational aspects of creation, they're also opposites. The same vibration can have two opposites. And it may be different for different people. For some people, one thing heals and the same thing may be no good for another person. And something that makes one person sick may be healing for another person. There are a lot of opposites we have. The clarity in Sefer HaPliya, which is a Kabbalistic book, which we took a lot of our interpretation of how we do the verses. It says the tree of the Garden of Eden, the tree which is eitz, and the the clarity is the tree in the garden, and the fruit is the haze. So remember, when there was a tree, everything was clear. When they ate from the fruit, everything became a haze. It changed everything. So from this explanation, we can also understand what happened with Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, who they only knew clarity. Before they ate from it, everything seemed to be clear. They were in the garden, there was no darkness, there was no haze, and so it was clarity. And then when they ate from the tree, Eitz Hadas, a tree of knowledge, something changed. When they internalized it, as they ate the fruit, they digested, something changed. There was now a haze that existed. But that haze that they created was actually the purpose in creation. So where we are at this point, the clarity is the purpose in creation. It takes the creation forward. But with Adam and Eve, where everything was balanced, they needed something to take the creation forward. What did the Creator want to them? To create a haze, to create something that wasn't clear anymore. And that's why the Creator wanted them to eat, and they ate from the tree. Before partaking of the tree, they knew only oneness. Once they understood the idea of separation in creation, they became confused. A person who grows up very sensitive to everything, and everything's in place, and everything works for them, it's a wonderful, they're living in heaven. But then if they step out of that space that they're in, that they grew up in, they go out into a world where the world is corrupt, the world takes advantage of you, it leeches from you, it does everything, and you're not used to it, it will destroy you. If you're not prepared for it, it will destroy you. They were not prepared for what happened. The experience they had taught them that the Creator created the idea of separation. So acquiring the knowledge of separation created an imbalance and a rift in the previous balance, the previously balanced existence. It was a very, very strange thing. So this idea of clarity and haze applies also to Adam and Eve, where they had clarity and then they had haze. Some people believe that they are great because they can intellectualize things, they know things in their mind, they think they're great because they know something. They don't see sometimes the imbalances caused by their knowledge. Many times I hear people, they have ideas, they have thoughts, and they know they're right, and they go out and they'll say it in public, and people will repeat the same idea because it's knowledge, it sounds brilliant, but they have no clue that this brilliance of theirs from their mind actually creates a lot of imbalances and a lot of problems. So in that sense, the mind can be a very dangerous tool. Our knowledge actually is comparatively minuscule to all the knowledge that exists in the universe. If people understood that, they wouldn't become so full of themselves if they thought about that. And if people would utilize the gifts they were given together, everyone has a little bit of the gift of knowledge of the universe. If everyone used it together, then we would all attract the assistance of the universal flow to bring harmony and peace again. Between Or, the clarity, and the Choshech, the kernel of why creation happened, and something will eventually be brought forth from it. So the why, when you ask why, it's not just asking a question. Why, but it's knowing how to ask a question. If you ask a question in the right way, it says, Shailos Chacham Chatut Tshuva, the question of a wise person is half an answer. The way you ask. It's not just asking. Two people can ask the same question, use the same words, but it's the humbleness, the humility, the way you ask it, that's how you'll get the answer. That's why a lot of people don't have an answer, because of the way they ask the question. Meanwhile, another way of expressing Or and Choshech is that Or heats the relationship with the divine, and Choshech cools the relationship. And that's how things grow. You have the heat and you have the coolness. The Or, the clarity, is the heat, and the Choshech is the coolness. The darkness, things cool down at night because of that. The light, or the clarity, is a hell for people who thrive in darkness, or for things that thrive in darkness. Since the Creator did not want them to die, the Creator hid the light from those things that thrive in darkness. The ultimate expression of the clarity is not for the Creator, it's for the creations. This gives everyone the ability to learn how to transform Choshech into, or darkness into light, haze into clarity. And that's why people have issues where, according to Torah, a person's not allowed to be a certain way or do a certain thing. That means it's not a judgment that a person is wrong. In the Torah, when God says don't do something or doesn't want you to be a certain way, what it means is that God made you the way you are to give you a challenge to transform something within yourself. Everyone needs to transform. Some it's more obvious and some less obvious. But when God says you shouldn't be like this and you are like that, you have a tendency, that means you have a strong challenge, a soul challenge, to transform that way of being. It doesn't mean it's okay to be that way because you feel that way. Tov, which is good, is here pure clarity. It's revealed because the Creator is Yachid, singular. There's no other existence in this world. The numerical value of the Hebrew letters, the word Yachid, singular or alone, the Creator's own, is 32. There are 32 times all the Kim is used here. And there are 32 pathways that we connect with the oneness of the Creator. Now, I'll just mention a few places where it speaks about clarity and light, and I'll translate it a little bit differently. It says, Er Zarul Atzadik, light is sown for righteous, in Psalms 97. I translate it, clarity is sown for the righteous. In Job 38, it says, V'yimna me'ershoyim oirom, and he held back from the wicked their light. And he holds back from the wicked their light. In Deuteronomy 30, it says, Re'ei nasat lefnechem hayoim as a chaim, as a mos, as a tevara. See, I've placed before you the life and the good, the death and bad. Regarding the future, it says, I have a few quotes, in Amos, it says, Yom Hashem choshech v'lo or, that the day of Hashem is darkness, not light. Or the Yom of Hashem is stillness, and not or, not clarity. Which is interesting, and the fact that choshech can be Yom Hashem, and we'll have to explain later on when we go into Yom what a day means. It's an expression of the Creator. And the expression of the Creator is in the haze because it's incomprehensible. Therefore, it says it's not clarity because no one can comprehend the Creator. So it's a question. Why would Amos say that a day of God is darkness or stillness and not light? But the translation is not actually day. It's an expression of the Creator is dark because it's not comprehensible, and therefore it's not clarity. So when you understand the word as clarity and expression, you understand what the verse is saying. Choshech is haze. In Isaiah it says, "La yiyeh lach eit hashemesh l'er yemam u'nega yirech l'yar lach af v'hayu lach Hashem l'er elam." It says there, the sun will no longer be for you the light of the day, and the brightness of the moon will not illuminate for you. Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Creator, will be for you an eternal light. So just as here, there is no sun and there is no moon, and you translate the word day, it doesn't actually mean day, but the light that's here is not day. It's not the light that we know. And so in the future, the light that will be in the future will not be the light of day the light that we know from electricity or from the sun. It's a different type of light. It's a light, it's a perception. We'll be able to see everything without using physical eyes. In the mind, you'll be able to see everything from one end of the world to the other. Which it says about Adam, that he was able to perceive from one end of the world to the other, just in his mind. And there are people that have an ability to actually put their mind somewhere and see what's happening in that place. It's not a usual ability, but there are people that have such an ability. In Job 18 it says, "The light of the wicked flickers out, and the sparks of his fire will not shine." The sparks of his fire will not shine. In Zechariah, it says, "On one day it will be known to Hashem, will not be day or night, and towards evening," Erev is evening, which can also be translated as sweet, then there will be clarity. So as far as the future is concerned, there will be clarity, there will be the darkness of the Creator, the non-comprehension. There are different verses regarding these things. And now I will go back just to make some comments on the verse. A comment on the verse, two different comments, is this verse refers to a perception that's open. As such, it has no capability of limitation or distortion. This kind of perception transverses the boundaries of the limitations of creation. Belief has the capacity to drive a person beyond their personal limitations or normal abilities. People do a lot of things with belief that they wouldn't have done otherwise. Open perception does the same thing with unlimited expansiveness. However, seeing holds a power that belief doesn't have. Those who can actually see the Creator in matter cannot deny the truth of the Creator in it. People who cannot see that connection, but are connected only by belief, are more vulnerable when that belief is challenged. So you have a lot of people that have belief, and they're stuck in that belief either because they don't understand, so they're not going to budge from it, or when it's challenged, they don't know where to go because they have nothing else but that belief. So belief on its own can be very strong and take you out of things, but it can also have a side effect where it doesn't work. In contrast to those who see, their belief is predicated at least partially on supposition. However, he or she sees the truth before him or her, cannot deny its existence. And that's why when I speak to people who see spirituality, who see souls or see spiritual realms, they know it exists. They can't deny it. And there's an issue because they see different powers. So it seems like they're different gods because they see different powers and different abilities. But that's where their perception is stuck. It's not beyond that. You have comprehension, and whatever comprehension you have to go beyond it. And so seeing is something that belief doesn't have, but belief sometimes has something that seeing doesn't have. Each thing takes you to another place. So when you have a belief system, or you see something, and you have comprehension, understanding of it, that makes a very powerful combination. When you have seeing or believing and you don't have comprehension, then it can often create a problem. And you see this with people who see things or believe in things or experience things, and they're stuck on what they experience or what they see, but their interpretation of it is not based on knowledge. And therefore they get stuck on it and don't know where to put that experience and why it's that way. The very fact that we experience something or see something means it's not God itself in essence, because the Creator in essence has no definition, has no beginning and no end. You cannot experience that Creator. You can experience creation. So when people get stuck in seeing or experiencing things, they're getting stuck in a creation, not in the essence of Creator, an expression from the Creator. And they often do not see that because that experience or vision encompasses them all together. So, the clarity that we have in this verse is not the clarity that people are accustomed to. It's a different type of clarity. It's a clarity that does not get stuck in the experiences or what a person sees. It's expansive. So the vayar here, the seeing here, the open perception, it's not just perception. I put open perception. It's open. It's expansive. You don't get stuck by the perception. For proper separation to eventuate, the boundaries are delineated in the original thought of creation. The existence of extremely attuned sensitivity requires that great care be taken in the opening of creation. If it's not done right, everything can disintegrate, everything can fall apart. You can't just open someone and expect things to happen. You have to replace it, you have to put something in that space that you open up. Once opened, the power bringing it forth faultlessly determines what issues forth. It just flows. It does so correctly in perfect synonymy that can only be of the ultimate wisdom of the creation and Creator. This clarity has purpose in giving specific direction in the creation as its purpose. So a lot of things have a purpose in giving direction. A lot of people are here to teach other people, to help other people. Your purpose is to teach, to help, to do things. You're not necessarily the ultimate purpose, the end result, but your purpose in the journey. The haze can nullify a person's limited perception in order to enable a person to be open to a higher or deeper perception. So sometimes the haze is actually good, because if you see, you become limited to what you see. The haze causes you to look further than what you've been seeing. Thus it is the haze and the clarity can be one. They both work in tandem. When something is totally clear or the light is too great, it becomes a haze or darkness for a person who is not ready to accept it at that moment. Furthermore, the words kitov can refer to the pure clarity in essence which fits into creation. However, it doesn't automatically fit in with the limitations of creation that come forth, but it fits in as the creation develops. So therefore, distinctions are necessary. So these are some of the ideas in verse 4. So therefore, when you read the book, it's reading it. But to live it, it's much more difficult because it's more than just reading. Another aspect of this verse in life. Anyone have any questions before we go on? Okay, just a little bit more. There are many times in life we have thoughts that we are not able to express accurately. How many times have we said something and it's not exactly the words, or the person didn't understand exactly the way we wanted it to be said? We don't always hear what we're saying. We may truly believe we've conveyed the true meanings of the thoughts, only to find out that another person misunderstood them. A person can have great sensitivity, yet only when the sensitivity is combined with wisdom, patience, and balance, may the proper ability exist that will bring the desired result to fruition. So sometimes we have a good quality, but we don't always have the other things that balance that quality. We don't always see it. We're often limited by intellect, or by perception of clarity, or by emotions and feelings we have. At times we sense a distinction within ourselves, yet we lack the proper knowledge for proper expression of what that is. I feel it, how do I put it into words? When we allow ourselves to just simply let go, the possibilities are endless. We don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen. Thus, while it may live within the haze, it can also be a powerful breeding ground for potential growth. Because you're going through something, the energy becomes pent up, or it doesn't know where to go, and so it's waiting to be expressed in the right place. So the haze could be a breeding ground for that growth that may come. It's important for individuals to recognize and utilize the gifts and powers of the inner self. These gifts are unique to each creation. Each person has a unique gift, unique self. However, it's the nature of society to discourage individuals from utilizing to the maximum the gifts that are given to them by the Creator. Potential for ostracization causes many of us to choose to suppress the call of the inner voice that seeks to unite us with our origins. People say you're crazy, and they push you out of the group or out of the place. They don't pay attention. There may be moments or brief interludes during the course of our life that the feeling of that connection with our inner self and the Creator awakens. It's at these moments that we must recognize the call to wake up. That calls on a direct hotline from the Creator. Instead of worrying about the reaction of our peers, we have to rise to the occasion to find out how best to connect with the Creator at that moment. It doesn't mean you have to do anything. It means you have to recognize it. This is what I'm feeling, great. Many times people feel down, they feel up, they feel something's going on, something's going to happen. And nothing may happen. It may just be that all you need to do is feel. Tonight, tomorrow, whenever it is you're feeling, there's a shift in the energy of the universe. Doesn't mean you have to do anything about it. It may be just feeling is enough, because that tells you you're sensitive, you're feeling something, and that in itself is good. So I'll tell a little story. One day there was a group of students of the Mizritcher Maggid, and they were discussing about what they would do if they created the world, how they would create the world. And one student said, I would do this, and one like this. Everyone has their understanding, imaginations, what they would do. And they went around each one saying what he would do, until it came to the youngest student, Reb Shneur Zalman, who was later on Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, and he said, if I was the Creator, I would do exactly as the Creator did. Wouldn't change anything. And I always found that story interesting, because we always think we can change it, we can do better, we can this, we can that. And people talk all the time. But of all the people that talk, very few people do anything. Some people do and they mess everything up. And a few people actually do what they say, and it's wonderful. Because they go with the flow. So it's not about knowing how much you can change and how you would be better than someone else or better than the Creator or do anything better. It's about doing what you need to do. Doing exactly what the Creator wants you to do. Not less and not more. And that sometimes takes listening with your mind and with your heart, with both. And if you only listen with your mind, the mind has a blind spot. Just like when you're driving, there's a blind spot in the car, the mind has one too, and you're going to get in that blind spot. If you go by your feelings in your heart, it's very open and very connected, but it has a blind spot as well. If you don't comprehend things, there is a blind spot. So we always have to be careful. And no matter what we feel or think, we always have to find ways if we can check it or not. If there's time to check anything or there's a need to. But if you can check it out, it's good. And if you have a few people that are open, you can always share with each other, and that's a good way to know things. Anyway, another interesting point about clarity and haze, light and darkness. In ancient Israel, there were two schools of thought. One was known as Hillel, and the other was known as Shammai. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. Beis means house of or the school of. Beis Shammai, the Talmud says, Beis Shammai declared that one must praise a bride according to the way she is. That's the expression that they use. That means that their operational mode was to continually contemplate and consider emotions, intellect, and heart in order to be vigilant that they were pursuing the will of the Creator. They were always vigilant. Everything had to be the way it is. What's the will of the Creator in everything? The word Shammai is from the word Shomin, means to evaluate. The followers of this school of thought evaluated themselves in the spiritual state. Therefore, they believed they should also evaluate other people at the level that that person was on at any given time. So, what they did to other people, which is very often the way people look at people, judge people, think about people, perspectives, are a reflection of self. The fact that they wanted to they evaluate everyone the way they are was a reflection that they always evaluate themselves the way they are. Their preponderance with self-criticism caused them to be overly harsh of those around them, just as they were harsh on themselves. In contrast is Beis Hillel. Hillel means praise, and they were constantly praising the Creator with their hearts and their souls. They didn't focus on incidental details. Therefore, they were quoted saying, "A bride is beautiful without faults." There were no faults. They saw themselves as pursuing the type of kindness that the Creator constantly bestows on the world. But even though the world is not perfect, and even though people are not perfect, God still gives life to everyone. God still sustains everyone. The details don't matter. It matters that your heart is in the right place. The bride is beautiful, the details don't matter. Now, Hillel was also a very interesting person. The Talmud says he taught his students how to speak to the birds and the animals. So many people often understand this. Well, communication with birds and animals, they put it in the perspective that they understand, which is a very, a very external way of communicating. It's what most people do nowadays. Here kitty kitty, here doggy doggy. It's just very external. It's not really communicating. It's not speaking their language. He taught them to speak the language, and it's more telepathic. And there are people who do animal communication today. Have always been, and there are people who do communicate with animals and birds and trees, etc. So Hillel taught his students the art of animal communication, birds, fish. Their hearts were open as a result of the love that he gave them. So because he gave them just continual love, they also opened up their hearts. And because their hearts were open, they were able to give others with their hearts. And that enabled them to have telepathic communication with others, which includes animals, trees, and all other existence. because they weren't limited by the structures that most people limit themselves to only a specific type of communication. The heart, when it's open, it's not limited to words. When you're open, kind, and loving, you inspire and support similar behavior from those whom you come in contact with. You meet people, you smile, they smile. Why? Because you smiled. It doesn't cost anything, it doesn't hurt. When the converse exists, the opposite exists, the energy promoted is one of anger, separation, and loneliness. And this is often a problem in religion, for example, where people think you have to behave in a certain way, and they explain why they behave in a certain way, but they don't see the other side of what they're doing. So they don't see what they want to elicit from other people. They are righteous in their own way of being, but they don't see the other side of it. So I think that the fourth verse of Genesis, which speaks about a separation between, or a distinction between haze and clarity, is something we can learn a lot about, that within our clarity we also have haze, and we need to look at the other side, the opposite side, the mirror side of ourselves as well. So in reflecting on ourselves, we need to see how that self that we have expands itself outwards, and the reaction from other people. And if it's people that act the same, then they're in the same group, they're attuned to react in the same way, so you don't see the opposite. When you go out of the group you're in, and you go elsewhere and you see how other people behave and you interact, that challenges the way you are, and then it's easier to start seeing yourself. But if you keep yourself insulated all the time, you don't expand. You keep closing yourself in. And this is the problem of any group that's insulated, that it keeps closing itself in more and more and becomes more disconnected. They think they have clarity because they know what they're doing, but in fact they're creating more of a darkness and a haze around them because they're distancing themselves more and more from the Creator. So in order to connect, you have to go out of that space. Not leave the space that you have to disappear from it, but you have to look outside the space, see what's beyond it, and learn from it. And then you can bring it back into the space, so space doesn't become one that closes in, but it becomes balanced and open to expansion. Okay. Any questions?